back to another edition of Gary's Record Collection. We are still in September. We are still going to focus on some great classic Led Zeppelin concerts that were released on bootleg albums back in the day. Very classic. Today we are going to talk about one that was called Going to California. That is from September 14th, 1971 at the Berkeley Community Theatre in Berkeley, California. 95 minutes of this made it to album. This was the story behind this one is interesting. Not really about the recording. The recording is phenomenal, but it was put on album, released. It was great. But apparently the manufacturer got panicky, maybe that the FBI was closing in on them. The rumor is that the pressing plates and the master tapes, they took them out to the Pacific Ocean and dumped them. Dumped them in the ocean because maybe the feds were getting too close to busting them. That's the rumor, that's the legend that lives on with this show. So we only have 95 minutes or so out of probably a 2-hour concert, maybe 2 hours and a little bit more, because they were just on fire this night. Which is a shame. Now, it would be awesome if the entire tape finally appeared, but 52 years later, we're still waiting. And no soundboard has come out of that show either, although at that point we think Shoko Sound was doing the sound. Shoko did the sound and the lighting for Led Zeppelin starting in, we think it was maybe late August into early September of 71. So this is the right time frame. So they may have been recording every single show at the soundboard. This one of them, but it is not out yet. So we are left with the vinyl pressings of Going to California. Now I got this back in the day. My first exposure to it was this one, which is a 2-record set on subtitled "The Trademark of Quality Years." Now the Trademark of Quality was a bootleg label, very famous in the 70s. They made a ton of records and put them out there. Finally, these were reissued many times, of course, but in the mid 80s, they put out a box set of 10 records, and there were 6 shows actually, 4 double albums and 2 single albums of famous bootlegs, among them Going to California. So this was out and in the bins when I went to the record convention in the late 80s, and I got it, and it was great. In subsequent years, I have picked up different versions of it. Here's one called Led Zeppelin LA Forum, but of course the thing is like it's not the LA Forum, it's Berkeley Community Theatre. Also, if you look on the cover, those are pictures of Page and Plant from 77. And same thing for the back, 77 pictures as well, even though this is a 1971 concert. And then not too long ago on eBay, I got this one, the Orange Madness one. It's made a little tough to see the color there with the light, but a great cover, and it's just a phenomenal recording, like I said. So much so that back in the day, when I was buying bootleg CDs, Going to California was available. You could get that. This was a 1-disc set, so it was not the entire concert because they could only hold 75 to 80 minutes. So better than nothing. However, I had a turntable, and then by the year 2000, I had some software where you could do noise reduction and get rid of rumble. So I made my own version based on the album, and there's like the front, you got the back, which is an homage to the Trademark of Quality Years, the inside, which is like the orange bomber that we just saw there, and we've got the CDs, which Led Zeppelin Going to California, and of course the classic Trademark of Quality pig logo I put on there too, because to try and be authentic. How about that? So yeah, let's dive into this recording. They opened with Immigrant Song. That is the standard opener from 71 and into 72. Even like early 73, I think, in up to the European tour, and then it disappeared forever. Immigrant Song followed by Heartbreaker. We're going to listen to a little bit of Heartbreaker. And the interesting thing here is that maybe 15 or 20 seconds into Heartbreaker, the taper decides that he needs to make an adjustment on his recording, on his recorder. So it sounds like it goes from distorted mono to a much more palatable stereo sound. So let's take a listen here. And so this is the mono, and it does sound distorted. And all of a sudden, that stereo field just opens right up. It is fantastic, and the rest of the recording is like that too. After Heartbreaker, Since I've Been Loving You, and it had a little bit of a cut on the beginning. Now, normally you would think about cuts as something that would happen during a tape flip. So let's say you've got if you were using a C90 cassette, it's going to go for 45 minutes, and then it's going to stop, and you're going to have to tape flip. And if you don't time it just right, you may miss some music. This didn't sound like that, though. It almost sounded like maybe the pause button was hit for 5 or 10 seconds. But check this out. This is the beginning of Since I've Been Loving You. And also, this is the where the noise reduction is. The quiet passages, it is so quiet, there's no vinyl rumble at all. And that's interesting there that they did not do the typical Since I've Been Loving You break where like they stopped and Robert Plant does his ooh all the way through and then he picks up and then they crash back in. He did his, they did their up to where Plant starts, but kept going right in there. You heard the drums underneath that. An interesting way of approaching it for 71. And at this point, you've got to remember that we are about 2 months away from the fourth album being released. So up to this point, the fans that have paid their money, they've got their tickets, they're going to the Berkeley Community Theatre. They know Led Zeppelin 1, Led Zeppelin 2, and Led Zeppelin 3. Those are the songs that they know. Anything else is like, they're going to sit there and kind of like go, what is this? And they don't know it. And it's interesting because these songs that are now classics that you hear umpteen times on the radio, and then even in later concerts, people lose their minds when they hear the first notes of these songs. At this point, they don't have that same reaction because they just don't know. Case in point, Black Dog. And there's just no sign of the audience losing their minds at all. It's like they're just taking it all in. It's like, okay, what's this? We don't know. That would change after the album comes out and then you hear it on the radio all the time. And it's interesting too that this Black Dog in 71, in the summer of 71 going into the fall, has that same sound that was on the BBC recordings, which is officially out now on BBC Sessions. But if you think back to the 1980s, the early 80s and the mid 80s, even before that with the late 70s, the BBC Sessions were like the only live thing out other than The Song Remains the Same. So you've got these BBC concerts where they played in 71, and Black Dog, it was a very thin sound, let's say. The guitar doesn't have like heavy reverb or distortion or anything. It's very clean. Everything is very clean about this. It doesn't have that heaviness, certainly the heaviness that's on the record. And I just always thought that was an interesting way to approach that. Years after that, though, they made it much more heavy, more like what everybody was used to hearing on the radio. And speaking of hearing on the radio, this is one that they did not hear. And just listen to the no applause at the beginning of this now classic. Okay, so we got a few whistles and whatever. They like it, but certainly not the rabid response that you would Stairway would get years later. We'll skip to the end and let's hear what they have to, how they respond after the end of the song. Has some good applause on there for a song that they had not heard at all ever before. Jimmy Page used to refer to it as polite applause that they got at the end of it, especially after the LA Forum shows in August of that same year. They were met with polite applause. Of course, later, after it became a monster hit on the radio, on FM radio and in concert, it wound up being the set closer in 75 and beyond, or the show closer. And people just lost their minds for that song. But here we are in September of 71, 2 months away from the record, and nobody's heard it. And it is greeted with applause at the end, although at the beginning they just had no idea what they were playing. An idea of what they were playing was when they got to the encore, which of course was a little tease there, a whole lot of love. And there you go, A Whole Lot of Love closes out the show, at least as far as we know, because, like I say, we only have the 95 minutes or so recorded because that's what fit on the albums, and apparently the tapes are out in the Pacific Ocean somewhere. Probably, if that's the case, it probably wouldn't play even if you found them today. But you know, there's always a chance that maybe a soundboard will pop up or somebody made a copy of that recording. New tapes are still coming out to this day. 53 years later, new tapes are being discovered. People recorded things, they stashed it away, and you know, it's a harsh reality of life that people are passing away, and their sons and daughters are finding these things and didn't know that their parents recorded them. Film, 8mm film, and these tapes too. So there's always a chance that the entire concert will get out at some point if somebody has a copy of it. We'll just have to wait and see. Well, what a great show. Going to California from the Berkeley Community Theatre, Berkeley, California, September 14th, 1971, the famous Going to California bootleg. Hope you liked it. We'll see you next time on Gary's Record Collection.